everyone out there, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan if you're new here, and if you're not new here, then welcome back. Happy to have you here. In today's video, I want to talk about some of my best tips for shopping more thoughtfully, more sustainably, and also some of my best tips for creating what I like to call a more intentional wardrobe, or a more minimalist style, or more capsule type wardrobe, and how that can also help to promote sustainability. The tips that I'm going to be sharing with you today apply to clothing, but a lot of these tips can also apply to other types of items that we might want to buy. So with all of that being said, let's get started. So let's just talk really quickly about what slow, sustainable fashion is. So slow fashion, perhaps you have heard of this term before, is all about designing and producing, and from a consumer's perspective, purchasing clothing that is of better quality and that's meant to last. Also takes into consideration the welfare of people, like the employees, and also the welfare of our environment. Fast fashion, on the other hand, is pretty much the opposite. So it's all about producing as much clothing as possible, as quickly as possible, with little regard to the materials being used and the impact that those materials might have on the environment. Textile waste has actually risen from 7% to 30% over the past 5 years, just due to the rise of the fast fashion industry. So let's get into the video and how we can start to shop more sustainably and more thoughtfully. Number one is to shop secondhand. Shopping secondhand is something that I have done for many, many years. I love thrifting. It's less expensive, but it's also less wasteful as well. The average American throws away about 70 pounds of clothing every single year, and so buying a used garment extends its life by about 2 years or so on average. So really great way for us to reduce our carbon, our water, and our waste footprint. So I love checking out my local thrift shops. It's something that I highly encourage you to do. See what is in your area. Another great option here though is thredUP, who I want to give a big huge shout out to, and thank you for partnering with me on today's video. If you've never before heard of thredUP, they're the world's largest online thrift store. And what's great about thredUP is that you're able to filter your search. So you can search for types of clothing or accessories based on brand, on material, on like the category of clothing, color, your size as well. So you can narrow that down, which is great because a lot of times when you go into your local thrift store, you have to sift and sort through racks. One of my favorite pair of pants, jeans, that I got probably about 6 months ago or so now, I got from thredUP, and I love them so much. These ones here, they're just a really nice sort of dark wash, high-waisted skinny jean, which again, I was able to filter for. It was actually a pair that I was specifically looking for, probably my most worn pair of jeans. And so these are from the brand NAKD. The estimated retail price was $48 for these, but I got them for $19.99. I also have a couple other items here that I want to show you that I got recently. I got this jacket that I was on the hunt for. Again, I was able to filter my search, found it really easily. Beautiful tan kind of camel color, and it's the exact style that I was looking for. So really happy that I found this. This one was from Forever 21. Estimated retail price was $33, and I got it for $13.99. I also got a couple of t-shirts that I was in need of because I love tying t-shirts up in a knot and wearing them in a lot of different ways. This one's actually from Everlane, which is one of my favorite ethical clothing brands, which is pretty great that you can get them from thredUP. This shirt was estimated at $18, and I got it for $10.99. I'm also a huge fan of jumpsuits. I find them just so comfy and so easy to throw on. This one here is from H&M, was estimated at $24, and I got it for $11.99. And lastly, I just want to quickly show you a denim skirt. I used to have a denim skirt and I loved it, but I donated it, I think, because it was like fitting really weirdly, so I found it in my size perfectly. This one fits me really, really nicely. This one's from H&M. Estimated retail price was $20, but I got it for $14.99. Many of the brands that thredUP carries are up to 90% off, which is great. So you're definitely able to save quite a lot of money just in general from shopping secondhand. But you can also use my code Megan30 to get 30% off of your first thredUP order. So I will leave that linked below. Point number 2 is if you are looking to buy brand new, consider shopping from ethical or sustainable clothing brands more often. And the reason why is because these companies tend to value the principles of slow fashion, so making use of reusable or eco-friendly or natural materials. They also have an awareness of their environmental impact, so water usage, producing their pieces with cleaner energy a lot of the time, waste byproducts, also paying fair wages to their employees, as well with safer working conditions. So some brands worth mentioning here are Reformation, Pact, People Tree, Organic Basics, Everlane, and I do want to point out here too that thredUP often carries some of those brands, so you kind of get like double the sustainability by getting some of those ethical brands secondhand. So like I mentioned, this t-shirt that I got here. Now, yes, a lot of those brands tend to be more expensive, and the reason for that is because cost of production tends to be a little bit higher, using quality materials costs more, paying their employees a better wage obviously costs more as well. So what I would suggest here is to view those purchases from those sorts of companies as more of like investments, knowing that you're going to keep them and make use of them for a long period of time, which I think is a good mindset to have in general with shopping. Which brings me to my third point, and that is to make items last as long as possible, the ones that you currently have in your wardrobe. You know, switch things around, try the clothes that you have with different accessories. If there's clothes that you haven't worn in a while, pull them out, try them on, see if they are kind of exciting again, if it's something you haven't worn in a really long time. And even if we do purchase fast fashion items, just being aware of it and not overdoing it, and again, kind of making those pieces last as long as we possibly can, instead of getting caught up in that cycle of buying needlessly. But something else that I want to point out here that I think is really important is don't feel bad if you're not shopping 100% sustainably or ethically at all times. You know, this isn't even realistic for a lot of us to do all of the time, myself included. Doing your best, doing your part, big or small, is still valuable. Point number 4 is to avoid impulse shopping. All we're gonna do usually is waste our money. We're gonna end up with clutter, right, in our wardrobe, or other types of things can just end up as clutter. Do your best to try to be aware of when you might be in a bit of an impulsive moment. One of my best tips that I can share with you here, that I have definitely shared in previous videos, is that if you're out at a store, this also applies to shopping online, but is to just pause for a moment before you buy something, either putting the item down, walking around the store for a few moments, kind of letting that initial excitement wear off just for a few moments, or even for a day or two, kind of putting it back, and if it's still on your mind, coming back to it. I do have a whole video up on 10 questions to ask before making a purchase that can definitely apply to this topic, so I will leave that video linked below. Lastly, let's talk about how to create an intentional wardrobe. This can be a great way to reduce waste and save money. So an intentional wardrobe, as I personally like to call it, is basically all about shopping as needed instead of needlessly. It's also all about buying and having items that you really love, that you feel good in, that you actually use and wear all the time. This is very much so similar to having a capsule wardrobe or a more minimalist style wardrobe, but it's not really about having a specific number of clothing or having as little as possible. It's just about being intentional, about being mindful about what you buy and what you own. So I have a few tips to share with you here on how you can get started with creating an intentional wardrobe. And number 1 is to understand your style and your preferences. So an invaluable tip that I learned from Caroline Joy from the blog Unfancy about 5 or 6 years ago, when I first ever created my very first capsule wardrobe, is to take all of the pieces that you own out of your wardrobe, all of the clothes that you own, and really make note of what you wear most often and what you love about these pieces, and what you wear the least often, but really making note of why that is. So is it the fit? Is it the color? Is it the style? Is it the material? And once you've sort of determined this, donate the ones that you don't love, hang on to the ones that you do love. But the reason why understanding your style and your preferences can be so useful is because then you know what to look for and what to put away when you are shopping, when you are in need of something new. You can much better pick up on, oh, I know that I'm definitely gonna wear this. I know that this style, this sleeve style, the neckline, whatever, I know that I love that, or I know that I don't like that. Even if you think that something looks really cute, you can kind of come back to that. It might look cute, but you know from your own personal experience that you hate when shirts like that maybe fall off of your shoulder or don't fit a certain way. Tip number 2 with creating an intentional wardrobe is to know your lifestyle. So basically just stop buying clothes that don't make sense for your lifestyle. Are you home a lot? Are you really active? Do you work an office job? What are the types of things that you do most of the time? I think a lot of times, I know that I have definitely done this before, where I kind of fantasize a little bit about maybe a piece of clothing that I see or an outfit that I see, and you kind of just feel like, oh, you can just really visualize yourself wearing it to a certain place or what have you. But a lot of times there are certain clothes that we see that are just not practical, that we're just not going to be making use of because of our day-to-day lifestyle. And my last point when it comes to having an intentional wardrobe is to have very versatile pieces. I have definitely learned over the years that less is usually more. We probably don't need 10 different brown sweaters, but instead having a really versatile wardrobe with really timeless essentials that can be worn through different occasions, through different types of seasons, just in a lot of different ways, makes life so much easier. It also means that we don't have to necessarily shop for things for different types of occasions or shop as frequently because our wardrobe is so versatile. So if you don't feel like you really have a ton of versatile pieces in your wardrobe right now, then go back to some of the tips that I shared about going through your wardrobe and understanding your style and your preferences better, what you love, what you don't love in a piece of clothing, and stock up on some really great basics that can be worn in a lot of different ways. Tank tops, t-shirts, leggings, a really good pair of jeans that can be worn in a lot of different ways. I do have a whole video up on my minimalist wardrobe essentials where I talk a lot more about this, so I will leave that video linked below if you want some inspiration. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned a thing or two in today's video. Thank you again to thredUP for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to use the code Meghan30 for 30% off of your first thredUP order. I will leave their website linked below. You'll definitely find something on there that you love. If you guys have any other tips on the subject of shopping more sustainably, I would love to hear from you as well. Leave me a comment below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.